Hey, what's up? My name's Ryan. In this video, I'm going to review the board game Honk. Honk is a new board game that just came out recently, and obviously the box looks really cute, but the setup is even cooler as you take all these geese that are pretty cute, you put them in a big pile, kind of scattered about, covering each other, and also covering some eggs just in the center of the table. Now the box says Honk is specifically for younger players to help introduce them to strategic board games with a low reliance on luck. So we're going to be looking at that in particular today, but before we do anything else, let me show you how it works. Depending on the number of players, you're going to set out some golden eggs laying face down on the board and then put some geese on top of them. Now you're going to put those geese on top of them in several layers, intentionally kind of covering each other up and making it a little on the messy side. The basic idea is pretty simple. On your turn, you can do one of two things. If you have enough cards in your hand, the right cards to match one of the geese out there, you can actually spend those cards and pick up the goose. The goose has to not be covered by any other geese. It has to be kind of exposed enough so you can just pick it straight out of there. But if you have those cards that match it, you can discard the cards, put them back into the pile, and you can grab that one. Now let's say you took a Canadian goose, you actually can score more points if later on in the game you get another Canadian goose. You can have multiple at the same time, you actually score more points. Now many of your turns you're not going to have the exact cards to match a goose out there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take two cards. The only restrictions are when you pick two cards, they have to be different colors, and also your hand limit is 7. Now as you work your way down to the bottom, there's a chance that you're going to take a goose that completely uncovers a golden egg. At that point, you get to grab that golden egg and add it to your points as well. At the end of the game, you're going to score off the golden eggs you got, and also just the eggs you consistently collected throughout the game when you took those geese. Either one when you took one, or if you were to match the ones that look identical, multiple at a time. Okay, so let's jump into some positives here. So the first big positive is the production is great. Obviously the box art looks good, but even once you set up all those geese, like I have yet to show this to a kid or even an adult who hasn't been like, ooh, that looks like fun. Like you're just going to be trying to match those symbols up and draft the geese. You take them off the pile and work your way down. That's just a really fun setup for a game. And the strategic side of this, as far as drawing those cards and trying to get cards to match up, also works pretty well too. So clearly what you want to do is, the idea is that you're going to help kids kind of see in games that, and also as an adult, you're going to see that, okay, like I really want that goose, but it's like they were taking reds earlier, so they might be going for that goose as well. So maybe I should kind of plan ahead and go for a different goose. Or possibly even saying, okay, so I have to draw two different color. I really only want a blue, so what's another color I can get that is useful for lots of different geese out there? Maybe I grab a purple, so I can see a lot of purple geese are going to come up soon. The little added bonus of when you get multiple of the same geese is also pretty cool because it gives you that bonus point. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but you're going to score pretty low. You get 1 point per goose you take. So clearly, like, getting that bonus one really helps. I think all those ideas mesh pretty well together. There's a little bit of the randomness of the golden goose eggs at the end of the game that maybe give you a little boost, and also maybe a little more strategic as far as like you might want to hold on to a card that will, work for the geese at the bottom that's going to expose one of the last golden goose eggs so you can get that bonus, but all that works pretty smoothly. Now, as far as negatives, there actually are a few things about Honk that bothered me. This game kind of lands middle of the road for me. I have some things I really like about, super cute, looks good, the drafting works, a little interesting, what you're trying to draw. It does work really well, but there are a few problems I have with the game. The first one that I've run into is just the vagueness sometimes. You put your gaggle, is what it's called, of all the geese out there, all stacked on top of each other, interlocking, and the rule is you can't access a goose unless it is exposed, right? Unless it doesn't have anything on it. But with all these sort of games, if you've ever played the pick up stick game, right, where you can only pick up a stick if it's exposed, you always run to these roadblocks, right, where someone's like, well, I think it is totally exposed. Well, I guess it is totally exposed, but there's one hanging over the edge. But it's not touching. Well, you can't really see, but if you get down here really close and look under this one, you can see there's a little airspace there. Things like that are hard to solve in this kind of game. When you get a little bit of that vagueness, like, oh, that golden goose egg, it's like a tongue twister, is that totally exposed or not? Well, it's hard to tell. Sometimes you wouldn't think it'd be a big deal, but sometimes it's hard to tell, like, okay, well, if you have a couple geese here, then they go arch over it like a bridge. But what if they have a bridge of one layer, so it's maybe making a little contact? Do you look straight from the top down? Sometimes you run into problems with things overlapping. Anyways, I have run into that issue, especially when I play this with a slightly older kid, who sometimes you're like, well, what's the fair thing to do? What should we do? And sometimes it's like a little difficult to work those things out because there's not really a clear answer to that. That kind of bothers me with the game. Just kind of the vagueness of sometimes it's hard to address, hard to fix, but what do you do if you run a situation where you have a player who really wants to win, or they really think they went for the strategy, they drew the extra red cards because they were thinking ahead, they want to get that red goose, and someone calls them out and says, no, it's technically covered and you didn't see that. Another issue is if the players start getting really strategic and really thinking ahead and getting good at the game, is you can actually run to roadblocks sometimes. where players have drafted up to the max of 7, and there's a goose they really want because they know it's going to give them 3 points. So the one that's on top, that's covering the ones below it, nobody wants that one on top because it gives 1 point. But everyone knows the first person to take that goose off. Also, the ones underneath it are going to give you all these cool combinations. What happens is this typical thing where on your turn, you're like, oh, you know what? I really want the one underneath it. So I'm going to draw 2. Now I have 8 cards. My hand limit is 7, so I'm going to toss 1. The next person doesn't say anything. They're thinking the same thing. I got 7 cards already. I really want that one under there, though. So I'm going to draw 2, and I'm going to throw away 2. Can get my hand really ready for the next round. Then after 1 or 2 times around the table, you realize that it's really in no one's best interest to grab that goose because it's worth 1 point, but the ones underneath it are going to give everyone 2 or 3 points. So whoever takes that goose doesn't have a good chance of winning. So you kind of get this roadblock where it's like, who's going to take that goose? This happens especially near the end of the game when you have someone who knows if I take this goose, someone's going to take this next goose because we can see there are 2 golden eggs under that one. That's worth possibly 6 points enough to win the game. So no one wants to take the goose that's going to expose the goose that you can now take and get the golden eggs, right? So you hit these roadblocks, which tend to happen as the players get better, which is a little frustrating, right? Because they get better at the game, now they're being punished by now there's issues with the game because you've seen that there's a better strategy. The better strategy sometimes is to not even go for the one on top. Don't expose that one because you'll let someone else get the one underneath it. So for that reason, my recommendation with Honk is very specific. I think this is a great game for parents to play with kids, or for like an older person, older kid to play with a younger kid. We're in a situation where you can be like, oh, you know, take that goose, it's open enough, or do this. You know, if there's any vagueness that comes up, a person who's older just kind of make an executive decision, and everyone around the table says, oh, cool, let's just do that, you know, or hey, I think this is exposed enough, or let's deal with this way, or as the older person saying, I'll take the bad goose and let the other person take the good one. That's fine. I would do that all the time I play with kids, right? I wouldn't sit there and make them pick the bad goose. The issue comes in when the kids want to beat the other kids and no one wants to be, or if you're an adult playing like a kid, and no one wants to be the person that's humble and take the bad move that's going to be a detriment to themselves, give other people a good move. So I think it's a great game. If you want to have just a really good time with the kids, sit down. It's super light in a way. It's a game you can teach in no time. It's one of these games you can literally teach a couple minutes. Everyone knows the rules. Everyone's playing. Everyone has a good time. But it just runs into those issues where if people start getting more competitive, there's some problems that are hard to solve. Again, the roadblock you can get to, and also some of the vagueness of what's covered sometimes. If you're the older player and you're the one teaching it, you're kind of the one running the game, and you can be the one to kind of, again, take the hit, take the bad move, keep it moving, keep it fun. I think it's amazing. I mean, it looks so good. And like I said, every kid who's seen this game, I've showed it to, they've just been like, ooh, I want to do it, right? I want to do the thing. I want to grab the geese. I want to get the card. It's so fun that they feel like they're learning. As they play the game, you can see they're like, oh, okay, so if I have this one card I want, I don't want another card. Oh, so I just pick a card that works with something underneath it. It's great. So it kind of does accomplish its goal, I think, of being a game to teach kids about strategy games that have low luck. Because lots of kids games, you know, especially classic kids games, have tons of luck. So much luck that they're not really learning how to strategize. It's just like, you know, maybe just possibly dumb roll and move. But this game actually offers good strategy, good basically thinking process where they can learn a lot about games. That's all good. Again, my only caution is it's not a great game probably to give to really competitive kids if you're competitive with them, or if they're going to be competitive with each other, because there's just going to be these fights that rise from this is covered, this isn't covered, I should do this, you're not allowed to do this. So anyways, it's a little specific. I think the game is great. I think it's really fun. I would just be cautious about that. If you found this review helpful, of course, hitting that like button down below really helps the channel out. Also, if you want to subscribe, you'll see a lot more reviews like this. Also, I do a bunch of solo and group playthroughs on the channel. See ya.